Welcome, all of you. I am the executive director of CETE, and right now I have the opportunity to speak on behalf of CETE. That is CETE, the Contextually Engaged Theological Education Foundation of South Florida. I know it sounds like a real mouthful, but the joy of it is that what it really comes down to mean is conversation and community. And if that doesn't sound wonderful, I don't know what is. Let me just say that part of what SETI stands for then is a vision of connecting people near and far, but with the vision that comes from South Florida, a land of extraordinary diversity and also a fair amount of fragmentation. We find here in South Florida that people are in separate communities, almost islands, separate one from another, and that different theological conversations are in separate communities. And we recognize that in this time, in this country, that kind of reflects where things might be as well, and perhaps even in our world. And so SETI stands for a way of standing up against that trend and helping to reverse that trend by bringing together people from diverse backgrounds in new and important conversations that might build up a future in a way that is moving towards perhaps a more just and humane world. We recognize that we're in the midst of crises, struggles, real threats, and yet we know that we must act to change things, and that the only way change has ever happened before is when people come together to act for that type of change. We know that this is what we're called to do, and this is why we come together as a community. I've said enough so far about SETI. I could go on and on about my delight about being part of this, and I could greet some specific board members by name, but I know that they will do that when their time comes to introduce themselves. Right now, it's time for us to put ourselves in prayer. And so I'd like to invite that Joe Iannone would lead us off in prayer as we get underway. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Brian. This short prayer actually is from Mary Ann Holtz, who did one of our SETI webinars on active hope. She sent it to me as her grounding statement for 2025, and I've never heard that before, a grounding statement, but it speaks to me, and I hope it speaks to you. It goes like this: God, who is love, is present in every moment and every event. And because God is present, loving is always possible. God, who is love, is present in every moment and every event. And because God is present, loving is always present. And we are in this moment here tonight and in our world today. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I want to thank you so much for that prayer, Joe. What a beautiful way for us to get underway. Of course, we cannot begin this gathering without introducing ourselves. And I'm quite sure that Joe will be able to place a copy of that beautiful prayer online or possibly go ahead and make it available in other ways. I assure you, I will make sure that that prayer is made available to all, and that the recording that we're doing right now will be made available to all. Let me now say, though, that it's critical for us in SETI, in the SETI Virtual Network, that we began with full introductions to each other. So I'm going to invite that we start with introductions in such a way that everyone introduces themselves, and with Joe last, because Joe is our presenter this evening. You know, Joe has had a fantastic role in getting the SETI Virtual Network underway, but Joe has never had the opportunity, has never presented before for us, SETI Virtual Network. I have to say how much I admire Joe and what he'll be saying and the importance of what he'll be saying. I look forward to it so very much. I'm going to be asking that each one of us speaks to our name, our location, and what especially excites us about this conversation this evening. I'm going to lead it off, and then I'm going to ask someone who will in turn ask someone else, who will in turn ask someone else. I just want you all to commit that no one asks Joe until the very end, because at the very end, Joe will go ahead and introduce himself after the last person has spoken, and then we'll hear from Joe, and then he'll get underway with his presentation. Sound good? I will introduce myself with my name because you can see it on the screen, but it's so hard to pronounce because it's pronounced Brian Fraley. I know you're probably thinking my name is Brian for Holy, but it's actually Brian Fraley. I am located here at the moment in West Palm Beach, Florida, looking right across the water, where the oligarchs of the world and of this country certainly congregate as they plot to take over the world in various nefarious ways. Not that I don't have my mind made up about just what is going on in our country, but let me say to you all that what most excites me about what is going on tonight is that we have an opportunity for action that will engender deeper conversation, I trust and I pray, for further action. I would simply conclude by saying it is never enough to do theological work and reflection merely to interpret, understand. We do theological work and reflection. We do contextually engaged theological education for the purpose of participating in the teaching and healing ministry of Jesus, that the world might be transformed in light of the gospel. I've spoken way too long. I am going to ask that Mary Kelly speak next, and that she then speak, naming her name and proper pronunciation, her location, and what most excites her about this, and that she then calls on somebody else, saving Joe Iannone for last. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
I'm Mary Kelly from Parkland, Florida, and I heard about the work that Joe Iannone has done on the environment for a long time, or heard that he's doing it, and then most recently with through Art Kane when he had groups for spiritual ecosystems. So I appreciate this time to hear Joe speak. Oh, and Donald Kamba, would you introduce yourself next, and I'll observe whether or not I mispronounce your last name. Hello.
Well, thank you, Mary. My name is Donald. Humble.
Oh, okay.
I'm up in Indianapolis. I've always heard of Joe and the wonderful work this whole team of ecological inspiration has done and continues to do. And so I was really, really very excited when he was going to be doing this for us. So I'm not going to say much because I know that it means so much to us, to me in particular, for flourishing of the world, for refreshing ideas that come, and for the impact that this conversation on ecology will do. I live up here in Indianapolis, still do theology, but I also work in the hospital as one of the priest chaplains for our Franciscan hospital. So the whole Franciscan thing going with ecology has always been deep in our traditions. Having said that, we look forward to a wonderful evening. I will call on Patrick Hammond, to help me whether I pronounce the name correctly.
My name is Patrick Harum. it's English, but in America they all say Parham. So I'm here in Hallandale Beach, Florida. I've been associated with Joe for many years and with Brian through several incarnations, one way and another. And I must say that this has brought me back from the brink. The situation is, I never thought I would be living in these times. And I was at the point that I thought, all right, I'm just going to withdraw. That's it. I'm going to do nothing. I'm just going to wait it out, play and reflect, walk in the woods, and let's see what happens, because there's so little that I can do about it. But Joe has inspired me, and it's inspired me to see what the church is doing and what Pope Francis is trying to do. And I received something yesterday. All of the Protestant churches, from Mennonites to Episcopalians to progressive Jews, all sued the government yesterday on behalf of aid, and it's just wonderful. So we, as Christians, as people of faith of any denomination or any persuasion, have to stand up. And I'm here tonight because I want to hear how Joe, and what we're talking about this evening is that, and wondering how and where I could spread that. I have a home in New Mexico where I am in the summer. Maybe we could get a pilgrimage going there. Maybe here, maybe there. I'm inspired to re-engage, and I think that's very important. And I'm honored to be here and counted among the faithful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Terry?
Hi, everybody. I'm Terry Mashad, and I'm based in Queens, New York. And I'm in my free time when I'm not working, I'm an environmental activist with Metro New York Catholic Climate Movement. And I know that the Laudato Si movement has embraced the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And so I just wanted to hear more about it. And I'm just really looking for anything we can do to pick up the pace to address the climate crisis. We've got to get moving. So can I call on Hobbit Forest?
Thank you. Yes, I am Hobbit, and I live in South Florida. That's my location, Fort Lauderdale. And I am a graduate of St. Thomas University. I have a Master of Divinity, so I know some of the people here. I'm interested in the conversation. I'm curious about how this is going to turn tonight. I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm also pragmatic in the way I see things. So keeping an open mind, and I'm curious, and I have a lot of respect for Dr. Iannone. So however this is going to unfold, I'm sure that it will inform me and allow me to inform others who I come in contact with at my church and other contexts, but mostly the church. So I'm looking for some direction in this area, and in a non-political way. I hope that this is going to be non-political, but maybe it won't. I don't know. I think it's an important issue. And when I was at St. Thomas, there were a couple of times where we invited people in to talk about Christianity from an environmental perspective. And I enjoyed those presentations, those lectures. So with that, I am going to call on Barbara Cotter. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barbara Cotter, and I actually live in Northern Virginia, Mount Vernon, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C., where everyone talks about everything, but nothing happens, sadly. And Joe has gotten me interested in this, so I really wanted to hear his presentation tonight. And so I decided to attend. Thank you very much.
So Barbara, who will you call on? Need you to unmute, please, Barbara.
I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button and I lost the picture. I'm going to call on Joe Holland.
Unmute there. Okay, thank you, Barbara. And great to be here. Brian, thanks for pulling it together and to see you old friends and Joe and Donald, yeah. And Anthony, my goodness, very long time no see. Yeah. I'm excited to be here because of what Joe's doing. Building a network, which is really a larger form of community, I think. I believe it or not, I've been following the new right since the 1970s. And I wrote about this coming in a book. What happening now, I wrote about eventually coming, and I wrote about it in 1976. And I wrote about it many other times thereafter. I happened to be living in Chile during the last year of the government of Salvador Allende, and I watched the rise of a fascist movement and his overthrow, orchestrated really by, according to some Chilean analysts, not so much by the CIA as by the Pentagon. And the brutality that followed, terrible murders and torture and rapes and so on and so on. So when I returned, I tuned in to what the New Right was doing here. It was that point it was called the New Right by Richard Viguerie, and was one of its architects, and things like the moral majority, you will recall. And I've watched it's been growing year by year steadily, and I knew what its objectives were. Now it finally has triumphed. And sadly, the Democratic Party was largely out of touch with what was going on. And somehow it managed to lose the working class, which was its foundation. And also, despite the tension around abortion, it managed to lose the Catholic Church, which was one of its mainstays in the past. So it wound up as a small party of coastal, urban, secularist elites, mainly, strengthened by the tremendous power of civil rights movements that it allied with, but not enough to carry the country at all. And it abandoned so much of the country. Anyway, Joe is doing the very opposite of what happened to the Democratic Party. He's gone back to the grassroots. This is what the New Right did way back in the 70s. And you build from the bottom up, and you build by networking and building community. The antidote, I think, to the communities of hate that are forming are communities of love. And actually, I'm writing a paper about that now. So that's what excites me about it. And I want to thank Joe and Brian for all they've been doing, and other folks with it in creating CETE. Yeah. And I know Anthony's doing some wonderful things and elsewhere, and Donald's doing wonderful things long range over into Nigeria, and other people as well. So there are very hopeful signs around. One last point, just to say, I just finished reading a book by the expert on fascism. A man named Robert Paxton was a retired historian from Columbia University. Book's name is The Anatomy of Fascism. He pointed out, although Hitler and Mussolini succeeded, they were the only two of literally dozens and dozens of attempted fascist leaders who failed. Most fascist leaders fail. I think that's very helpful. The only way they fail, however, is that they only come to power only with the alliance with conservatives. If they lose a significant sector of their conservative base, they fail. And the conservatives are not all bad people. We really have to reach out to them and dialogue with them and help them fracture the coalition, the evil coalition that's out there. Anyway, so thanks again to Joe, especially for all he's doing. I will pass it on to Anthony then. Okay.
Thanks, Joe. Good to see everyone. Anthony Vincegora, feel honored to be here. I've been hearing about these CETE virtual gatherings for a couple of years now. I've never been able to gather one before, so I feel very honored to be here. I worked at St. Thomas University for about 14 years. So Donald, Patrick, Hobbit, everyone I've met you before. And yeah, just excited to be here. I am a disciple of Joe Iannone for many years, and I've been hearing about what's going on with the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty informally from him. So I'm looking forward to getting updates and just really Honored to be here with you all. I'm currently working my PhD up at Boston College, and so I've been busy with that. I also work in rural Northwest Haiti, but excited to be here. And I'll hand it off if she hasn't spoken yet to somebody who's doing really cool work, but I've never gotten to meet, Madeline. Have you introduced yourself yet?
Hi, no, I haven't. Hi, everyone. I'm Madeline. I apologize so much that I'm mobile right now. But I'm really excited to be here. I work for Courtney Berrien in the Adrian Dominican Institute for Mission and Leadership at Barry University. And I am an AmeriCorps Vista in her office, and I'm doing work with like sustainability coordination at the university, but really centered around the teachings of Laudato Si within that context. And so it's been amazing. I've been here since August, although I'm originally from Maine. I'm in Miami Shores. So yeah, it's been incredible, and I've learned so much about Laudato Si and eco-spirituality and everything that kind of embodies with the charism of the Adrian Dominican sisters. So yeah, I'm just here to kind of absorb more of that context, and I've heard so much about Joe Iannone. Courtney, raves about you, so I'm just honored to be here and to listen.
And this brings us to our speaker this evening. Thank you very much to each one of you for introducing yourselves. I think it is now time to bring on Joe Iannone, who needs no further introduction.
Thanks everyone here for showing up tonight. I want to preface what I'm going to do about the Fossil Fuel Treaty and this initiative by acknowledging that what I'm going to talk about is like turning the rudder on the Queen Mary. While migrants and refugees are being thrown overboard right now. And we really have to be able to do both. We have to do justice, but we have to care and charity to the immediate issues of people who are suffering right now, especially in our country. So I want to acknowledge that. A couple of months ago, with Pax Christi, Florida, we took up an initiative, and the initiative is to get the Florida 2025 legislature to endorse the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty initiative. This is an international initiative. If you were to go to fossilfueltreaty.org, you would see that 16 countries have already signed it, 130 sub-nations have signed it, millions of people have signed it. It's trying to get momentum within the global community to take this action. And what is the action? The treaty is very simple. Step one, phase out fossil fuels, oil, gas, coal. Gas often is referred to as natural gas. It's really fossil gas. It's methane. It's more powerful than carbon. So those are the things that are trying the first phase. And COP28 a year ago, the 194 nations signed on to do that. So there is a commitment to phase out fossil fuel. The second, of course, is to transition to renewables, solar, wind, geothermal, nuclear. And the third is to do it with equity, because the people who are most affected by this right now are the people who least put the carbon in the air. And at the last COP, it's try to get $1 trillion to make sure these countries have resources so they don't have to go to fossil fuel. So that's basically it. Phase out, transition, do with equity. Now, the issue we took of Pax Christi, by the way, in Florida, it's Catholic-based, but it's ecumenical. Pax Christi International started in 1949 after World War II. There are 137 units around the world working on justice and peace. But in Florida, we took on the issue to work with and through our 7 dioceses, Catholic dioceses, which means there's 471 parishes. So the last couple of months, we have 11 connectors and allies in these dioceses reaching out through various means to get at least one person in each of those parishes to join into the network, okay? Which would mean at least 471 people. We'll get more than that. We have more than that, but they would cover the 120 districts where the representatives and senators in the Florida legislature. And what are they going to do? They're going to activate step one, this Mariner action alert. And Brian, I think, is going to put it on the screen. I'll demonstrate it. All a person does is put in their name, their address, and automatically this message goes to the governor and to your local senator and representative. This is kind of like our linchpin. It's our tractor. This is the modus that we're going to use. Here it is. And Brian, could you scroll down to where you put in the names? Okay, that's all about the treaty. And then, I don't know, Brian, are you able to put my name in there, or is that not possible? Could you type in Joe Iannone, my first name, last, yeah. Okay, my address, choose one. I guess you have to choose, okay, and my address is 337 Madison Street, Hollywood, Florida.
Yep.
33019. And then, do we need anything else? I can't see that. Yeah. Okay. Yahoo.com. Okay. And then hit take action, Mr. Okay. Take action. And see what happens when you do that. When the person does this, this message goes to Governor DeSantis. It goes to my, keep going. It goes to my representative and my senator. So that's kind of the linchpin. That's kind of the tractor that people are going to use. So we're trying to get thousands of people to do this in the network. Okay. Thanks, Brian. Now, how are we doing that? Well, the people are reaching out through various means, because what we're working with is what we're calling a holarchy. That is a horizontal network. We'll get, for example, if 7 people give this alert to 7 other people, who give it to 7 other people, already we reached 343 people. So last 2 months, we've been using this network. And in January, we have put it out to the interfaith. There's an interfaith, Florida Interfaith Climate Action Network, and to 27 environmental groups. We did that last month. So we're in the process of getting this link out to various networks, and we're basing it on our common baptismal calling. That is, each one of us has agency. I mean, each one of us, my family, my neighbors, my workmates, those are the people we're going for. We're not going through the hierarchy, even though we informed the Florida Catholic Conference of Bishops, Mike Cheese, the director, he's one of our allies. And if they want to join in, the bishops, the priests, wonderful. But they only can join in as shared baptismal responsibility. That's it. John the 23rd, when he was asked as the Pope, what was his most important day in his life? He said, not coronation as Pope, not ordination as priest, baptism. They also asked him how many people work in the Vatican. You've probably heard that. And he said about half of them work. So he was kind of a character. But we're only going horizontal because that's the power. The power is in the network. It's not in anything else. The Paschal candle, Easter Vigil, that's a good example. Light a candle, it spreads, okay? The leaven raises the dough. The salt does stuff to whatever it flavors. The mustard seed obviously spreads out. That's where our power is. Between stimulant in my response, I have a choice. I always have a choice. That's my freedom. We're asking people to make this choice. Now, this choice to get this treaty going is really our primary intention, but our subsequent intention is more long-lasting. When they actually endorse this, the city of Key West has already done it. Maine did it a couple of months ago, and we're using the resolution that the city of Key West passed to put into the Environment and Natural Resource Committee of the Senate. Actually, this resolution is similar language to what the other states have done. But what we're doing is sending it to them. We have the list of all their committee members, and we have our people in Pax Christi, Florida, emailing the 8 members and sending them the resolution and following up with phone calls. So we're in the process of getting it in the committee and in the process of getting thousands of people to activate that alert. The committee legislature opens on Mardi Gras, March 4th. It goes for 60 days. So we have a run here between now and May to just flood the zone with this. It could be a high school kid. All you have to do is reside in Florida. You don't have to be an adult. You don't have to be a citizen. You just have to have an address. So that's where we have our power. And that's the power of getting these legislatures to have enough courage to do what they know is right. Now, people have asked me, especially since Trump became president, why continue this? Well, we had Trump before Trump. We had DeSantis. We have DeSantis. DeSantis refused $2 billion of climate federal aid into Florida that would retrofit homes, businesses. He just said it was too political. He already was getting permits in the Everglades to drill for oil. You know, he removed climate change from any government document. So it's no different now in Florida than it is after Trump became president and wiped out all the things that the federal government was doing. But subsequently, our intention is to organize networks, because when these networks are forming in parishes and dioceses, interfaith, environmental, that's the real power. This is really a catalyst to inspire, maybe, to convene, to educate, and to call people to action. They already have the power. We already have the agency. No one has to tell us what to do. This is us. And so that is where we're putting our energy. Now, I entitle this as a pathway to integral ecology, because obviously global warming is not the whole issue with regards to taking care of our Earth. I use the analogy, you've heard it, of the frog in the frog in the pot on the stove. You know, you put the frog in the pot, you start turning up the water, the heat. The frog loves it. It's warm, playful. But of course, when the water boils, the frog dies. And that's what's happening with global warming. But before the frog dies, it falls asleep. So we're trying to wake up the frogs before the water boils over and we die. The pathway to integral ecology, that term was in Laudato Si of 2015. Pope Francis encyclical, 10 years now old. Same at the Paris Accord was in 2015. The Paris Accord said we need to stay below 1.5 Celsius by 2030. To do that today, we have to cut emissions by 43%. We're not doing too well, but that's kind of the goal. But integral ecology is like if you had a wheel and the hub was integral ecology, there'd be 7 spokes that are needed to be involved if you're going to have total ecology. I'll read them to you. The cry of the earth, take care of the earth. The cry of the poor, ecological economics, adoptable and sustainable lifestyles. You know, they say if everyone on the planet consumed like we do in the United States, we need 6 planet Earths in terms of how we're consuming. Ecological education, ecological spirituality, and communities of resilience and empowerment. So those all need to be worked on. Obviously, they're the rim. The hub is integral ecology, 7 spokes. The rim needs to be connected for this to move. But finally, in my presentation, we're focusing on global warming because in this scenario, it's a threat multiplier. For every fraction of increase in global warming, and last year was the highest year ever recorded of heat on this planet. You know, let me read you, before I end up with my conclusion, let me read you some data that just, I picked them out. It's kind of idiosyncratic. It's not like organized. For example, 42% of the carbon emissions in the air atmosphere right now since 1850, the industrial age, put in the air since 1990. So when people just say, well, this is just normal cycles, you know, how the earth goes. Yeah, it is. But we're cutting carbon and methane in the air. That is causing the acceleration of the global temperature. Or for Floridians, 80% of Florida's Floridians live 10 miles from the coast. Think of that. 80% of us live 10 miles from the coast. And with Helene and Milton, we found not only this coast affected, but Asheville, North Carolina, where people thought was a climate haven. In fact, more destruction is being caused by flooding of rivers and lakes than by tidal surge in the last year. Okay, but we are particularly impacted here in Florida. Here's another one that you love to hear. Governments subsidize fossil fuel corporations last year, $10.5 trillion. Tax, the United States, 20 billion. Our taxpayers' money are funding, governments are funding the burning and heating of the planet. Okay. Here's another one I like. In 2023, Exxon, Chevron, Shell, BP, British Petroleum, $100 billion in profits. The richest 1% of the global population causes 50% of the emissions. The poorest 50% cause 8%. And the one that I use and people laugh when I do it, Elon Musk has research that shows a sliver of land in the Southwest desert in Arizona and in Texas, a sliver with an upgraded electric grid and sufficient batteries, solar energy can provide all the energy that the United States needs. So we have the technology, we have the finance system, we just need the willpower to get people to act. Threat multiplier, it multiplies the threat to poverty when it warms up on the heat. Hunger, health. In Miami-Dade County, they hired the first chief health officer in the world because when the heat advisories are so often, people's health is greatly affected. Also to threat to shelter. So that's why, while the other things need to be worked on, the other spokes, this is much more urgent. These are cascading, exponential things. You know, we need to adapt. We need resiliency. We obviously need to do those things. But if we don't take the finger out of the dike, this is just going to get worse and worse. And as you know, you're all intelligent people, you know that global warming doesn't cause the wildfires. It doesn't cause the hurricanes. It just makes them more powerful and more often, that we can't keep up with them. we can't keep up with them. So we're hoping that by mobilizing a network, by using the treaty as kind of this attractor to attract people to do something, and giving them a very simple thing they could do, that action alert, that will, as I said, be a catalyst, educate. And when the legislature passes this, okay, we will have done something in Florida that hopefully could be a prototype for other states, because a lot of the national environmental groups, because of Trump, are turning to work in states and local. So we're going to try to give it our best shot. Now, let me end with saying, which you already know, this is a relay race. This is not a marathon. You know, we're just going to pass this on to other people. But that's why we can work so hard at it, because we don't have to go the distance. Okay, we have to do our part. And I love this quote from Buckminster Fuller that you maybe heard about. He said, "Let's be the straw that saves the camel's back." Isn't that pretty neat? Let's be the straw that saved the camel's back. Or we can quote John F. Kennedy. By the way, I did this quote. I presented this to the Miami-Dade Commission. You know, a lot of Cubans are in Miami-Dade. I presented this quote of John F. Kennedy to end my talk, which I'm doing here. John F. Kennedy says, "Problems caused by humans can be solved by humans." So this is a problem we can solve. When I did it in Miami-Dade County, a guy rose up, complained what John F. Kennedy did for Cuba. So I have to be careful about that. It was a funny kind of thing. I think that's it. I think we have the reason, we have why we're choosing global warming, we have the methodology that we're using with Pax Christi and the interfaith and environmental groups, and we have the agency that we all have within ourselves. So I think at that point, Brian, I think we're going to go into triads, and then we could have hopefully a more robust conversation among ourselves. How's that?
Friends, we've got a lot to talk about. I will simply say that I just have loved that focus on the relay race. We are truly in a relay race. We've got to find all those who we can say, "Tag, you're it," as we keep running and others keep running together. I'm going to now move everybody into breakout rooms, and I'm going to ask that when you're in your breakout room, that you get to meet the folk there and talk about your reactions and what's next. We'll take just 15 minutes in that breakout room because we've got a lot to talk about together when we come back together. See you soon. So I would like to ask that someone start the conversation, knowing that Joe needs to hear the conversation and his comments after we've been stirring it up a bit. And if that person speaks, then that person might be the one to call on the next person who might be waving her or his hand or otherwise indicating, "Hey, I got something." So let's begin. Please, someone just jump in.
I was saying in our group that what wonderful thing you're doing, Joe, and I was wondering, once you get the documents submitted, what's going to happen to the network? And we have a little group thanks to Joe, he got us to form the Season of Creation groups, and our little group is still meeting, but everybody, of course, is depressed and nobody knows what to do. But we were saying in our group that one important thing is not to isolate and to meet with groups, be part of a group, even if you don't know what to do. So I was wondering if Joe, after your network, submits a document, maybe encourage people to form in small little groups. Anyway, pass that on. It seems to me it's the building of small communities is a first step toward we're dealing with.
As I mentioned, Joe, the subsequent intention is the networking, and around the parishes, around the ecumenical, the interfaith, trying to connect faith people with environmental people. That would be, and hopefully government people too. And Marinol, like on March 5th, they'll let me know exactly how many people had actually activated the link. On January 10th, when we started, there were 250, which is very encouraging. We'd only been at it a week or so. And I didn't spring this on them yet, but I think as we go more forward, they'll have that database.
Yeah.
Everyone who activates that link. And so I'm hoping that there's a way, technology, to then invite people to not make it public, but who wants to be part of a network in their local group. So that would be like in June.
Wonderful.
And so I hope that we'll have the data. So I think.
Joe,
Yeah.
what do you mean when you say activate the link? You don't mean just sign the form.
No, just what Brian did. Just fill it out like
Just
he
fill
showed.
out the form.
Submit it. Right.
Okay.
And what you get, when I did it, I got a thing from Marinol say, thank you, Joe. And I got a thing from my representative, Cassie Hessel, saying, we received your such and such. I'm not sure everyone will get that, but so they are capturing the data at Marinol. And Thomas there told me he'll have it available. I don't know further on what we could do with it, but that's our intention anyway. But we know, anyway, I'm talking. Someone else?
In my group, there was some discussion about agency, the idea that we have agency, which I wasn't the one that mentioned it, but I guess I would say that was like that we are each of us empowered as an individual and as members of our respective communities, whether they're faith communities or other type of communities, to be able to move this forward and to have the self-confidence, maybe more information, a little bit more information to articulate this. I mean, I don't know that I could ever articulate it the way Joe did tonight. He just was so fluid and graceful in his presentation, but maybe we'll be able to have some type of frequently asked questions that we could review and have so that when people ask those questions, we would know some answers. And the other thing, some of the communities I encounter, they always are concerned about safety and protection of privacy. I'm wondering if nobody's touched on that tonight, but this thing that we're signing, in what ways are we safe? It's not, obviously it's not anonymous, but what will be done with that data as far as us as individuals will there be any way that we're protected, or can there be any kind of consequence or how do we address that if people ask about that question? I'm not asking you to answer it, but that was an inquiry. And then there was the mention of the interfaith organization, but I couldn't quite catch the name of it. You said Florida Interfaith.
It has a website, Florida Interfaith Climate Action Network.org.
I got it now.
Beverly Ward, Quaker, and Russell Meyer, head of the Florida Council of Churches, they are kind of the leaders in that. And they're also sending this out, but that's only been in the last month. We only contacted them in January. On your first question, obviously, when I send it to my representative, they know it's me. Okay, so that's part of, part of the thing. The other part about agency, I think Brian maybe toward the end will put that link to the 4-minute networking video.
Ready, available, everyone. That is the link you'll see right now in chat. It's the little one from YouTube. And then there's the big link that will allow you to do what Hobbit just did and click on that and make sure everybody knows where you stand on these things. It'd be lovely to hear from everybody else. Maybe we got another voice ready.
I have one more comment. So we talked
Hobbit.
a little bit about things that we could galvanize together, regardless of our political beliefs, and that is health related issues.
Yes.
And how maybe we are being impacted, poor or rich. And also the economic aspect of like the skyrocketing cost of insurance that is driving people out of their condos or their homes because they can't afford it. So could be another common factor that might you know, skip over political stuff. So those are the things we touched on.
On the first one, the health, there's a Dr. Cheryl Holder is one of our allies. She's head of the Florida Clinicians Climate Network. And it's all about the health issues, all about the health issues. And as far as the other issue, they're already bringing people away from the coast, you know, up in counties on the west. They're raising roads here in Miami-Dade. You know, this stuff is already happening in terms of not just the insurance, but the home values itself. Other people, comments or suggestions?
All right, so I'm going to church on Sunday, and I'm going to try to explain this to people. And I don't even know where the link is. How do I find the link to share with others?
Brian?
I want to interrupt real quick.
Yes.
I did put the link on chat, but Patrick, I happen to know your email, and so I'm going to send it to you right now. I will
thank you very
make
much.
sure it appears on the CETE website, so anyone who clicks on the CETE website will see it as well at no extra charge. Let's all together. Thank you all.
All right, good. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely, Patrick. If you can get it into your church, I'm unsuccessful with my parish. I tried so many times with our pastor, but if you have access to any kind of religious network or environmental network, and you can get that to them, for them to spread it, you know, that's great. That's what we're trying to do.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm on it. We'll see how I do. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Joe, I have a quick question. Could you say anything about where any success you've had so far in talking to any of your state representatives? We all know, as you said before, that the legislature is so conservative. Obviously, people think we're all past it, but I agree, them just discussing it would be a lot.
I've tried. My representative, Senator Jason Piso, he's now the minority leader, Democrat in the Senate. And it was all very positive until Trump won the election. And now it's kind of like crickets. And the other one is Anne Marie Rodriguez of Monroe County, who's chair of this committee, the Republican, which is good because we want it to be bipartisan, where the city of Key West actually is. The city passed it in her county. And I have a way of getting, supposedly her pastor is going to sit down and talk to her. Both of them are Catholic. So, and Art Kane is with his Senator Rosalind Oswald, has made contact. But what we're also doing, as I mentioned, maybe too quickly, we have on our website the list of all the members of the committee, statewide committee of Senate Environment, Natural Resources, which has their email and their phone number. Okay, so people in Pax Christi are also reaching out directly to the members of the committee. We're just going to flood and keep at it. Just, you know, if it ends up just being an educational catalyst to form a network, more power to us. I think we'll crack the code because I think people, my own optimism, I guess, I think people are looking for alternatives to take some action. You know, things are so dire on one side that anything they could do that's positive, I think people might gravitate to. I call it the strange attractor, the strange thing that attracts people that wouldn't necessarily you think would be attracted. So other people, suggestions, ideas. Oh, I wanted to mention in our small group, I had forgotten to say it, when I talked about the parishes and, you know, shared baptism and all that kind of stuff. What I've used, I had an opportunity to speak to the commission, Miami-Dade Commission, or committee of the commission on this. And I went there thinking I'd give them all the statistics and I'd give them all the heat, all that kind of stuff. And then I said, yeah, I could do that. But I'm going to talk about why I'm doing it. So I started out by saying, I am Christian. One of my favorite sayings is, God so loved the world, the earth, the universe, the cosmos, that God sent his son. Okay. So if I love God, I'm called to love what God loves. Well, God loves creation. God loves us, you know? So that is the deeper motivation. And what you love, you take care of. So I talked out of my faith, and we talked in our small group that sometimes talking out of my faith, I get more entree. People pay more attention because it's your Catholic voice or your Episcopalian voice or your Jewish voice. So I want to encourage people not to be hesitant, because that's why we're doing this. We're not doing it to lower our, our price of eggs. We're doing it because of our faith calls us to it. Anyway. Other reflections, on the suggestions?
Got to hear from folks we've not heard from. We want to hear from you.
You've heard from me, but I do have a quick question. I'm sorry, but
Please,
it's like
Saba,
I'm
jump right
itching
in.
to ask the question. And that is, I do some work where I go on the Seminole Reservation in
Yes.
Hollywood, and I'm wondering if there was any consideration of reaching out to
Yes.
indigenous peoples for many reasons.
Yes.
One, they have resources. Two, they may
Yes.
actually believe in some of these concepts, and it's
Yep.
definitely they're not going to necessarily be Christian
Yeah.
oriented the way you're talking, but they
Yeah.
may believe in the cause. And I wondered if there's
Definitely. Here, the Seminole and Miccosukee, they're part of. I participated in what's called the Florida Network. It's a statewide network. It meets every Monday night for an hour and a half, and the Miccosukes and Seminoles are part of that network. And they're very concerned in the Everglades because DeSantis is allowing permits to drill for oil on their land, the Great Cypress. Okay, so yes, they are teaching us, obviously, the care of our environment, and they are part of the network, and we're learning from them as well. But yeah, they have not a bigger stake, but they have a great stake in this because of and also the water issue with the reservoir in Okeechobee and trying to, get the fresh water down from the agribusiness to where they live, where we live. So thank you. Someone else had maybe a reflection or a question or comment, suggestion? Okay. Okay, let me, is anyone else? I just kind of summarize, or someone?
Joe, I said one other quick comment.
Sure.
April 29th, 22nd to the 29th is Miami Climate Week in Miami-Dade County. I know you're in Broward and not everyone's in Miami, but I've been really surprised to see the amount of traction that got. I mean, it's co-sponsored by the county. It's like 50 different events happening. Do you know if there's any connection to the Non-Proliferation Treaty that anyone's doing? They're like 50 events, so it's a huge, county-wide thing, but I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also a climate week happening next month with the VOLO, capital V-O, capital L-O, and Clio, and the national group, there's what's her name now? Rachel Roback is for the International Treaty Initiative. She's North America. And she called me, and she's going to the one that's happened with Volvo and representing the treaty of, not for us, but for a wider group. So and then also in March, there's another one in March. Also Palm Beach Atlantic, where Brian is at, they're having a climate, conference. So we're trying to get our feelers into those different groups. But you're right, they're very powerful. And that's why the environmental groups are now one of our allies along, with the interfaith. So see, it's trying to connect all these people. So the power is multiplied, rather than the silos, then we go on to another thing. So yeah, that's great, Anthony.
For those of you real quickly who might be seen on the chat, You will find the climateweekmiami.org that I've posted there, as well as the events taking place at Palm Beach Atlantic for ecology and theology. Please
And
do.
you did put the little video about networking?
I absolutely did, and I appreciate that.
That's
Joe, you're about to speak.
That's the golden ring.
No,
Joe?
please.
Joe, yeah, Brian and Joe, my apologies. I have to go to another Zoom meeting for one of our grandson's birthday greetings. So
Oh my gosh,
excuse me
good
for
for
that.
you.
Okay,
Thanks, Joe.
but it's wonderful being with you. Bye-bye
Right.
now.
Right. Thanks very much. Good.
Let's hear from those who haven't spoken yet. I don't want to put people like, say, Donald Cumbo on the spot, or Terry, or Mary, or Barbara, or even Anita, but it would be great to hear from some folks who haven't yet spoken.
Okay, most of my contributions were laid out almost immediately. That was why I held on. But when Joe was talking about, this week we are reading in Genesis, and I've been a fond, I love the book of Genesis all the time, the beginnings, and how God created this world, and how we need to protect it. And so it brings back my childhood memories of wonder, of Harry Potter's, he sitting down, and just all of those imaginations run me into it. And those are the kinds of ways that I try to reach out and hope that these conversations can be, carried out in the most simplest of ways. That if we love the earth and it's beautiful that we are part of it, we should not be part of the destruction of it.
Yeah.
How else can we explain to a 2-year-old or 1-year-old? So these are the kinds of ways that as I run into parishes and have conferences and have occasions to speak in the hospital, these are the healing ways I'm trying to put out there. So agency was what I took from that, Joe. And it's agency that we are building, and we are trying to connect in various levels.
Yeah, great. Yeah,
thanks, Brian. Thanks for putting me on the spot.
Let's put a few more of you on the spot. We want to hear from everybody.
Well, what I'll try to do is maybe summarize it very simply, and just leave with a concluding prayer. I think, Brian, maybe that would be helpful here. Another way I've been pitching this last month as a children's rights issue. Someone mentioned about the insurance and, health, definitely. But people pay attention when you talk about our children and our grandchildren's children have a right to healthy air, to healthy food, to healthy water, to a planet that's not on fire, or a planet that's just not overwhelmed, by flooding. And that's part of the relay race, that we have to run as hard as we can, but we got to pass it on, because this doesn't stop in a year or 2 years, okay? And so it really is up to us, if we care about our children's children. In fact, one of our allies, Delaney Reynolds, here in South Florida, is a young lawyer in her mid-20s. She just led a lawsuit against the government, Florida government, the Public Utilities Commission, on the same way the young people in Montana actually won the suit, saying our government has an obligation to us to provide clean water, clean air, and so on, suing, the government. Others are suing corporations because they're providing the fossil fuel. In fact, I have one more data before I finish. I missed one. I love this one. 57 corporations in the world are responsible for 80% of the carbon emissions. Imagine that. Only 50. So this stuff is doable if we and people mobilize to make the changes. The other thing is, solar and wind, not only are they renewable, unlike coal and oil, not only are they clean, but now they're cheaper. They're actually cheaper. So we just need to keep the word and the momentum going. But keep it in mind, I'd like to conclude, if it's okay, unless someone else has something they want to offer or say or contribute or ask. No? Okay, this is actually a short prayer poem that was written by Drew Dillinger, who was one of our students with Elizabeth Ferraro, who went to Assisi for one of our sustainability and spirituality conferences. And he actually wrote this in 2012. And it always speaks deeply to me. He says, "It is 2:23 in the morning, and I am awake because my great-great-grandchildren won't let me sleep. My great-great-grandchildren ask me in the driveway and in my dreams and in the store and everywhere I go, what did you do while the planet was plundered? What did you do when the earth was unraveling? Surely you did something. When the seasons started falling apart, as the mammals, the reptiles, the birds were all dying, did you fill the streets with protests? When democracy was being stolen? What did you do once you knew? We know." So thank you all for being here tonight. And Brian, thank you for hosting. And I wish you all a very blessed and peaceful evening.
Joe, that's a wonderful poem. Is there any way we could I get a copy of the poem, Brian, somehow? I
It
would like
will
to
be
speak
done.
that poem.
Yeah, me
It
too.
will
Church
be
on
done.
Sunday. I
That
think
was
that
beautiful.
it's
Okay.
beautiful.
As
All
What
right.
did you do?
as people
As I
prepare
point
to
my
exit,
finger.
if
Yeah.
anyone wishes to send to me, my
Mhm.
email address is my last name and first initial, FROEHLEB@gmail.com. FROEHLEB@gmail.com. Reach out to me and I will send you anything you request at any time. We are in it together, y'all.
Thanks,
Okay.
Brian. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks,
Right.
Joe.
Good night,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.
Good night,
Thanks for-
everybody.
Night,
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
everyone.
showing up.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank
God
you.
bless.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Good night, Brian. Wonderful,
Good night.
wonderful.
Very
Joe.
best. Blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Much appreciated. Thank you.